The dress I chose cost $47, and I bought it on purpose. It wasn't ugly. It was just plain a soft gray wrap dress from a mid-range department store, the kind of thing a junior marketing consultant might wear to impress her boyfriend's parents for the first time. I paired it with low-block heels and a small crossbody bag that I'd had for 3 years. No jewelry except for a simple silver chain my college roommate had given me as a graduation gift. My actual wardrobe was 3 floors up in a climate-controlled closet in my penthouse. My actual jewelry was in a vault. But Derek's parents didn't need to know any of that. Not yet. Not until I'd seen exactly who they were when they thought no one important was watching. Derek had been nervous all week. He kept saying things like, "My mother has very specific taste, and just let me do the talking at dinner, and please don't mention that you rent your apartment." That last one was almost funny, because I didn't rent anything. I owned the entire building, but I'd smiled and nodded and told him I understood. I'd been with Derek for 14 months. He was warm and funny in private, the kind of man who remembered how you took your coffee and texted you photos of dogs he saw on his lunch break. But there was always this other layer to him, this anxious, approval-hungry version that surfaced whenever his family came up. I wanted to understand which Derek was the real one before I let myself go any further. So I wore the $47 dress, and I drove myself to the address he'd given me in my least impressive car, which was still a very nice car, but I figured I'd explain it as a rental if anyone asked. The estate was everything I'd expected. Iron gates, a long gravel driveway lined with old oaks, a stone manor at the end of it that looked like someone had transplanted a piece of the English countryside and dropped it 40 minutes outside of Philadelphia. A man in a white jacket took my keys without making eye contact. I walked up the front steps alone because Derek had arrived 2 hours earlier to help his parents prepare. His mother opened the door before I could knock. She was tall, immaculate, wearing a silk blouse the color of old champagne. Her hair was set in a way that probably took an hour and was meant to look effortless. She looked at me the way people look at something they've already decided they don't want a quick, efficient scan from shoes to face, and then a smile that arrived slightly too late. "You must be Mila," she said. "Derek mentioned you were coming." She said it exactly the way you'd say, "Derek mentioned there'd be traffic." "I am," I said. "It's so lovely to meet you. Your home is beautiful." "It is," she agreed, without the customary thank you. She stepped back to let me in. "Derek is in the study with his father. I'll have someone show you to your room so you can freshen up." A young woman in a staff uniform appeared from somewhere and led me up a back staircase. Not the grand staircase I'd seen through the open foyer. The back one, narrow and carpeted in a faded runner, the kind of staircase the household help used. My room was at the end of a hallway on the 2nd floor. It was small, not unpleasant, but small, with a single window overlooking the side garden and a twin bed with a quilted coverlet. "The bathroom was shared," she explained, gesturing toward a door in the hallway. "The family's other weekend guest," she noted, "was in the suite at the front of the house. The one with the private bath and the view of the fountain. This is perfect," I said, setting my bag on the bed. "Thank you." After she left, I sat on the edge of the mattress and thought about what I already knew about Derek's family, which was considerably more than they realized. His father ran Whitmore Holdings, a portfolio of boutique luxury hotels on the East Coast, the kind of properties that hosted anniversary weekends and board retreats and small weddings for people with old money and careful taste. 5 properties, all of them beautiful, all of them quietly hemorrhaging cash for the past 3 years. His father had made a series of bad renovation decisions, taken on significant debt to fund an expansion that hadn't performed, and was now trying to attract outside investment to keep the portfolio afloat. My firm had been watching Whitmore Holdings for 8 months. We'd already purchased a quiet majority of their outstanding debt through a series of intermediary transactions. His father didn't know who held his notes. As far as he was concerned, he was dealing with a private equity fund called Meridian Capital Partners. He just didn't know that I was Meridian. I'd founded the firm 6 years ago at 23 with a small inheritance and an obsessive understanding of distressed hospitality assets. We now manage just under $2 billion in holdings across 14 states. I had 31 employees and an office in Midtown Manhattan that I rarely used because I preferred to work from home in my pajamas. None of this was secret, exactly. My name was in the filings, but my firm operated quietly, and I lived privately, and Derek's parents were the kind of people who didn't research the women their son dated because they assumed they already knew everything worth knowing just by looking. I heard Derek's voice in the hallway outside my door sometime around 7, heading toward the front of the house. He didn't knock. Dinner was at 8. I came downstairs at 7:55 to find the family already seated in the formal dining room along with their other guest, the one with the private suite and the fountain view. Her name, I learned, was Ainsley. She was about my age, blonde in the way that costs money to maintain, wearing a dress that I recognized as a recent season from a designer I knew well. She had gone to school with Derek, his mother explained during introductions, in a tone that communicated volumes. Her family had a home in the Hamptons and a place in Palm Beach. Her father sat on the board of a Philadelphia museum that his mother had chaired a gala for. Ainsley was placed to Derek's right. I was placed at the opposite end of the table, near his aunt, who was hard of hearing and mostly interested in her wine. "Derek tells us you work in marketing," his father said, not looking up from his bread plate. "That's right," I said. "Consulting, mostly. I work with a few private equity clients." He said, in the way people say, when they're already thinking about something else. His mother asked Ainsley about her summer plans. Ainsley described a charter in the Greek islands with a warmth and detail that suggested she'd been preparing to discuss it all evening. Derek smiled at the right moments. Twice, he glanced at me with an expression that was meant to be reassuring and instead looked apologetic, which is a different thing entirely. The soup arrived cold. Not elegantly chilled, the way a gazpacho might be just cold, as though it had been sitting in a warm kitchen long enough to lose any temperature it had started with and then been forgotten. I ate it without commenting. His aunt ate hers with focused determination and asked me if I'd ever been to Bermuda. I told her I had. She said she'd gone in 1987, and it had been marvelous. After the soup, his mother turned to me with the expression of a woman who has decided to perform generosity and wanted credit for it. "We're having a small gathering tomorrow," she said. "Ainsley's parents are coming, and a few friends from the club. I thought it would be nice for everyone to meet." She smiled. "I'm sure it will be interesting for you to see how we entertain." I said I was looking forward to it. After dinner, Derek found me in the hallway near the base of the back staircase. He touched my arm and steered me toward a small sitting room off the main corridor, closing the door behind us. "You're doing great," he said. "Am I? I know my mother can be a little much. She just needs time to warm up." He ran a hand through his hair. "She really likes Ainsley, obviously. They've known each other forever. But that doesn't mean anything." "Derek," I said, "why am I in the staff quarters?" He blinked. "What?" "The room I'm in. It's on the second floor, back, staircase, shared bath. Ainsley is in the suite at the front of the house. I'm just curious about the logic." He opened his mouth, closed it, and then said, "My mother assigns the rooms." "I didn't. I'll talk to her." "Please don't," I said. "It's fine. I'm comfortable." He looked relieved in a way that told me he wasn't going to say anything. I went to bed in the small room and slept easily, because I've always slept well when I know exactly what I'm dealing with. The next morning, I came down for breakfast to find a note on the kitchen table, written in his mother's handwriting on monogrammed stationery. It said that the household would be busy preparing for the afternoon gathering and that the family would be having breakfast privately. There was a basket of pastries on the counter for me. I ate one standing up and then went for a walk around the grounds. The estate was lovely in the early morning dew on the grass, light coming through the oaks at a low angle, the kind of quiet that costs a great deal of money to purchase. I walked out past the garden and around to the front of the property and stood looking at the manor from the outside, thinking about architecture and debt-to-asset ratios and the particular sadness of beautiful things that are slowly going broke. His father found me there around 9. He was in walking clothes, a cap pulled down, the hearty and deliberate look of a man performing his morning routine. He stopped when he saw me and seemed briefly uncertain, as though he'd forgotten I was there. "Early riser?" he said. "Always," I said. "Beautiful property." He looked at the house with the mixture of pride and anxiety that I'd learned to recognize in owners of struggling assets, the love that can't quite override the worry. "Thank you," he said. "Been in the family 3 generations. My grandfather built it." "I know what it's like to watch something you care about face pressure," I said. He glanced at me sharply. "The market's been difficult. I added, pleasantly, looking back at the house. For hospitality especially. A pause. Derek mentioned you consult for private equity. Here and there, I said. I find the sector interesting. He looked at me differently after that, not with warmth, but with a recalibration. I was still wearing jeans and a simple pullover. I still looked like a marketing consultant. But he was a man who understood that people who didn't need to signal knew how not to. The gathering that afternoon was the kind of event that's described as small by people for whom 40 guests and a catered spread is small. Ainsley's parents arrived first, her father clasping Derek's father on the shoulder and her mother kissing his mother on both cheeks. Then friends from the club, couples in their 50s and 60s in that particular uniform of old money weekend, casual loafers and linen, quiet jewelry, the studied ease of people who have never had to think about the bill. I circulated. I listened. I was friendly with everyone and memorable to no one. I had done this exact thing at 100 events on the other side of the table, and the skill translated perfectly. At one point, I found myself in conversation with a woman named Patricia, who had known Derek's mother since college. Patricia was sharp and curious in a way that had probably been underestimated her entire life, and within 10 minutes, she'd asked me 4 questions that were actually one question. Who are you? Really? I told her I worked in real estate investment. What kind? She asked. Distressed assets, mostly, I said. Hospitality has been a focus. She studied me over her glass of sparkling water. You're younger than I'd expect for that. I started young, I said. And Derek knows what you do? He knows I work in finance, I said carefully. She nodded slowly, looking across the room to where Derek was standing with Ainsley's father, laughing at something. He's a lovely boy, she said, in the tone people use when they mean something more complicated. The reveal came the way reveals always do in these situations, not dramatically, but sideways, when someone thinks you're not paying attention. I'd stepped out onto the terrace for air, and Derek and his father had come out through a different door without seeing me. The stone pillar between us was wide enough. They didn't know I was there. She seems nice enough, his father said. She is, Derek said. But, Derek. His father's voice had the particular weight of a man making a point he's been building toward all weekend. You understand what this family needs right now. You understand the situation. I know, Dad. Ainsley's father has connections to 3 hotel investment groups. 3. And their family is liquid in a way that could make our current problems disappear inside of a year. You've known her your whole life. She's appropriate. She fits. A silence. Mila is Derek started. Mila is a consultant, his father said. She seems like a perfectly pleasant girl, but pleasant is not what we need right now. We need to be strategic. Another silence. Longer. I know, Derek said. Just that. I know. I stood on the other side of the pillar and felt something settle in my chest, not heartbreak, exactly, but the click of a thing finally locking into place. I'd given Derek every opportunity over 14 months to be the person I'd hoped he was. He'd just used 2 words to clarify everything I needed to know. I stepped out from behind the pillar. They both went still. It's a beautiful afternoon, I said, looking out at the garden. I was just heading back in. Don't let me interrupt. Derek's face had gone the specific color of someone who is trying to calculate how much you heard and coming up with too much. His father had recovered faster, which told me something about which of them was actually the more dangerous. I smiled at both of them and walked inside. I found his mother in the sitting room overseeing the dessert arrangements, with the focus of a general managing a campaign. She saw me come in and her eyes went briefly to the terrace door behind me, and I could see her recalibrating as well. Could I speak with you for a moment? I asked. She set down the small card she'd been adjusting and gestured for me to follow her to the far corner of the room, away from the catering staff. I want to make sure we're being honest with each other, I said pleasantly. I think you've made it quite clear this weekend that you don't consider me appropriate for your son. I understand. I'm not going to make this difficult. She had the grace to look almost uncomfortable. Almost. It isn't personal, she said. Our family is in a particular position right now, and Derek has responsibilities. To help you secure the Whitmore portfolio, I said. She stopped. I've been following the situation, I said. The debt restructuring. The conversations with potential investors. The timeline on the Seaview property specifically, I believe that note comes due in 60 days. Her face had gone very still. "I'm familiar with your lender," I said. "Meridian Capital Partners." "How do you know that name?" Her voice was low and careful. I reached into my crossbody bag, the one I'd carried all weekend, the modest 3-year-old one, and I took out a card. Just a simple card, ivory with clean type. It said my name, and below it, in the same quiet font, Meridian Capital Partners, founder and managing director. She took it. She looked at it for a long time. "I've been watching your husband's portfolio for almost a year," I said. "I think there's real value there. The properties are genuinely beautiful. The bones are good. The problem is management and debt structure, and those are solvable problems." I kept my voice completely even. "I came this weekend because Derek asked me to, and because I wanted to understand your family before I made any decisions. I understand you now." She looked up from the card. Her face had traveled through several expressions and arrived somewhere unreadable. "What are you saying?" she said. "I'm saying that Meridian currently holds approximately 63% of Whitmore Holdings' outstanding debt," I said. "And I'm the decision maker at Meridian. So when your husband calls his contact at the fund on Monday morning, the person who takes that call will be me." The room felt very quiet, even though there were 40 people 20 feet away. "I'm also saying," I continued, "that none of this changes what happened this weekend. The room I was given, the pastry breakfast, the conversation on the terrace that I overheard. I let that land. I'm saying those things happened before either of you knew who I was, which means they tell me exactly who you are." She said nothing. "I'll be leaving after dessert," I said. "I think that's cleaner." I walked back toward the gathering. Patricia caught my eye from across the room and raised her glass slightly, and I had the impression that she was not entirely surprised. Derek found me near the dessert table about 20 minutes later. He'd been looking for me, I could tell from the slightly out-of-breath quality of his presence, the way his eyes searched my face. "My father just told me," he said. "I know. Mila," he lowered his voice. "I want you to know that what I said out there I was just press. He puts pressure on me, and Derek," I said, "I'm not angry with you." He looked almost more frightened by that than he would have been by anger. "You're not?" "No. I think you're someone who wants to be better than the situation he grew up in, and mostly you are, in small moments. But when it actually matters, you choose the path that costs you least." I picked up a small plate from the dessert table. "That's not a flaw I can fix, and it's not my job to try." He stood there with the particular paralysis of a man who'd expected either a fight or forgiveness and received neither. "Will you?" He stopped. "Tried again. The business situation. With Meridian, will you?" "I'll make whatever decision is right for the investment," I said. "Same as I would for any other holding. Your family's treatment of me this weekend will not factor into it." I looked at him directly. "I don't do things out of spite, Derek. I don't need to." I ate a piece of lemon cake, which was excellent, complimented the caterer on my way through the kitchen, and his father was standing at the bottom of the front steps when I came out. He'd come out to intercept me. I understood, to say something, to recalibrate, to begin the process of managing the situation. He was a man who'd spent his life managing situations. He looked at me for a moment without speaking. Then he said, "I underestimated you." "Yes," I said. "You did. I'd like to talk. Properly. About the portfolio." "My assistant will be in touch Monday," I said. "We'll schedule something." The man in the white jacket brought my car. I tipped him, because I always tip, and I drove down the long gravel driveway between the oaks, watching the stone manor get smaller in my rearview mirror. I called my best friend from the highway because she was the only person I wanted to talk to. "How bad?" she asked. "About what you'd expect," I said. "Staff staircase. Basket of pastries in the morning." He didn't knock. "He didn't knock?" Her voice went sharp. "On my room door. He walked right past it." "Okay," she said. "Okay. And the business part? His father is going to want a restructuring deal. I'll probably do it because the assets are genuinely good. I'll just do it on my terms this time instead of quietly from a distance." "And Derek?" I thought about the terrace, the pillar, the 2 words, "I know." "Derek is going to spend a long time trying to figure out which version of this weekend was the real mistake," I said, walking past my door, or standing on that terrace, or introducing me to his mother in the first place. I merged onto the highway and settled back into my seat. The answer is all of them, but not for the reasons he thinks. What do you mean? He thinks the mistake was underestimating my money, I said. But the actual mistake was underestimating what I'd remember. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Lemon cake?" "Excellent lemon cake," I said. "Best thing about the whole weekend." She laughed, and I laughed, and the city came up in the distance with all its lights, and I drove toward it the same way I'd arrived at that iron gate 2 days ago, knowing exactly who I was, dressed however I felt like dressing, and entirely prepared for whatever came next. The Monday call with his father lasted 47 minutes. My terms were fair, because they always are. The deal closed in 11 weeks. I never spoke to Derek again after the highway. Not because I was angry, but because there was simply nothing left to say. Ainsley's family, I heard through Patricia months later, decided not to invest after all. It turned out their own finances were considerably more complicated than the linen and loafers had suggested. Patricia and I have had lunch 3 times since then. She is exactly as sharp as I thought, and I like her very much. She says she knew within the first 10 minutes of meeting me, which I believe, because I knew within the first 10 minutes of meeting her that she was the kind of woman who always knows. I still have the $47 dress. I've worn it twice more to events where I wanted to remember what it felt like to walk into a room as just myself, before anyone had done the math on who I was. It's a useful feeling to keep close. It reminds me that the math was always mine, that I had it the whole time, in every room, on every staircase, eating pastry alone in a kitchen that wasn't meant for me. The number doesn't change, only what people decide to do with it, once they finally bother to look.